Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for The Flash, Season 1, Episode 7, Power Outage. And this episode, I honestly didn't know what was going to happen in this episode because this was the episode before the Flash versus Arrow crossover. So I honestly didn't think this episode was going to be anything that big. I thought it was pretty much just going to be a complete filler episode. When really nothing much to touch upon, but this episode did end up being very important, definitely. Mainly because of Wells. We found a lot more about Wells. We found out a lot more about, sort of like Barry's getting closer to that reveal, and, we got a really cool villain as well. It's not going to be anywhere near as epic as what next week's episode is going to be, which is going to be amazingly awesome, but this episode was still very good, and let's just get to it. So we start off 10 months in the past, and we see Farooq is watching the particle accelerator experiment from a vantage point on top of an electricity transmission tower. And right away we establish who our villain is, who is Farooq. He is with his friends on the ground below, and when the accelerator explodes, the shockwaves hit Farooq and his friends. The explosion in tower electrocute Farooq before the tower collapses on top of Farooq's friends, killing them. So that was really crazy. I didn't know what was going to happen there. I mean, that was absolutely crazy, the way we just started the episode like that. So we go into the present, and we see that Wells enters his secret chamber he used in the series premiere. If you remember, he went to that, secret chamber at the end of the premiere, and we actually see that again here. So, he's speaking into a recorder, and he's dictating Barry's progression as the Flash, and he says that Barry isn't meeting his full potential. And he then pulls the 2025 news article, The Flash's Demise in the Crisis, and says the future still remains intact, and he then calls Barry into Star Labs, where he says that the Flash needs to kick his speed up a notch and help Star Labs use his powers to cure illnesses. And what I like about this scene is you don't really know if Wells is good or bad here, so you don't know if he should really listen to him, and, it's very interesting the way they're writing his character, because I think it definitely is very interesting. I know some people think it's cheesy, but he's a good character. He's very shady, you don't know anything about him, and I love that. I love that we don't know anything about him, really. I think that's great. So, the lecture is cut short, though, when Barry is called to a homicide scene, and at the scene, the victim is left a charred husk from extreme electrocution. The victim's face was too free to identify, and we see Cisco and Caitlin using star technology to identify the victim, and the progress is cut short, however, because Cisco gets an energy reading from a power plant that matches what was on the corpse, and Barry races to the power plant, where he sees Farooq feeding off the plant's energy, and he senses the immense energy resting in Barry and sucks it from him like a mosquito. When Farooq is finished, Barry can't tap into his suppress, and he's powerless. So, I thought that was an awesome twist, that basically he just took his powers away. And before, we basically thought, they thought that this guy, could suck up electricity and electrocute people, but that's not what he can do. He can take away people's powers, like Barry's. So, I thought that was really cool. And the fact that we have, the fact that they're making every single villain for Barry just hard and hard to defeat, I love. That's something that I love what The Flash is doing. Now, and so it's not the best episode of the season. I'd like to say it was, but I'm not going to, because I know next week's is probably going to be, just because of how hyped I am for it. So I don't want to say this is, because it really wasn't, but it was a really awesome episode, and I love that twist. So Barry has to take a cab back to Star Labs, because he can't run back, because he has no powers. And Caitlin's saying that Farooq couldn't have changed Barry's super accelerated genes because, she doesn't think that's possible. However, Wells promises that he will find a way to restore Barry's speed. And Barry leaves for Central City Police Department where he meets Joe and Iris. And Barry tells Iris, tries telling Iris that maybe the Flash won't be able to help Central City anymore. Now, this really makes a lot of conflict for Iris because she's, of course, is writing about the streak. And he, of course, doesn't want to write, wanted to write about the streak. There is that, but there's also the thing that, the Flash isn't going to be able to help anymore, really, because the Flash is powerless. And if the Flash is powerless, then he can't help anyone. So I think that definitely is very interesting and really runs Barry and Iris into a huge conflict in terms of their friendship. And I think it is definitely very interesting how this came across. So I really enjoyed that twist. I thought that was, really, really good in my opinion. I definitely really enjoyed that. And we can see on his way out, Barry sees the police bring William Talkman, aka Clock King, into the precinct. And Clock King actually is our main villain here. Now we thought the main villain would be Farooq, but no, really the main villain. Yes, Farooq is the main villain, but Clock King plays a major part in this, which I'll talk about. So, concerned for the Flash's future, Wells goes back to this time chamber. He tries searching for the Flash or Barry in the future's news arches, but no matches appear. So for now, the Flash doesn't exist in the future. So it makes sense, because Barry just lost his powers. So because of this, and I think it's interesting, by whatever happens to Barry affects the future. I think that's really cool, actually. And I think this episode is pretty much confirming that what Wells is doing is good, until the end, which we'll get to. Because elsewhere in the lab, Cisco identifies Farooq as the man who stole Flash's powers, and almost on cue, Star Lab's security cameras pick up Farooq standing outside its doors, demanding to speak with Dr. Wells, and he reveals that he is the man from the episode's opening, and blames Wells for his friend's death. So, we knew that, and I thought, I mean, that was absolutely insane when we found that out, that Wells was the person that killed his friends. I mean, that's awesome that we found that out. I mean, because he really is a very shady character. We don't know too much about him, and I thought that was just an amazing scene. So, when the gang doesn't let Farooq in, he rips open their power box, zaps all their electricity, he plunges the entire city into a power failure, including the police department. Clock King uses the temporary pandemonium as a chance to subdue his guards and draw a gun on Joe and Iris. He holds the entire precinct hostage, and this was absolutely insane what was going on here. Like, this was, like, really awesome. I mean, again, I really want to say that this episode was the best episode of the season, but I'm just not going to. I mean, it was probably definitely up there, because this was awesome right here. When this happened, I'm like, this is just awesomeness, what's happening. The gang doesn't let Farooq in and everything, and he's desperate to save Joe and Iris. Barry pleads Dr. Wells to find a way to restore his powers, and I also really like the scene that we got earlier of Barry saying he loves being the Flash. This is what he wants to do. And, you know, people are telling him, look, this might not, you might not be able to be the Flash anymore, but he wants to be, because that's part of his life now. He wants to save people. He wants to help people. That's what he's wanted to do all season long. So for him to just get all those powers taken away, it sucks, because it really ruins his goal of what he wanted to do, which is to save people. And it's really sad that he can't do that now. So Barry pleads Dr. Wells to find a way to restore his powers, and Wells suggests jump-starting. And Barry's latest powers by basically what that is Barry's latent powers by striking him with a force similar to the particle accelerator-fueled lightning bolt that gave Barry his speed, but within the Star Labs building. And Barry thinks that maybe he should talk to him first, and he confronts Farooq, and I like the way he did this. He demands to see Dr. Wells, and Farooq senses the familiar energy readings off of Barry and identifies him as the Flash, and Farooq electrocutes Barry and flees, and Dr. Wells tells Cisco and Caitlin to get Barry to Cisco Treadmill so they can jumpstart Barry, so this will work, because they want to get his powers back, obviously. He's not going to have his powers gone for the rest of the show. That'd be ridiculous. We're 7 episodes in. He's not going to lose his powers. So, Wells says he must confront Farooq on his own. However, he goes to Tony's cell and makes a bargain with him. And I thought this was interesting that we saw Tony again, because I think this was the first time that we saw a villain more than once. I mean, they did set that thing up in episode 4, but that didn't go anywhere. So, I think it's cool that we're starting to see villains again, and in my opinion, I think this is going to show that they're not really going to do the whole villain to weakling anymore. This is all going to start to connect, which I really do like. So, basically, the bargain is, if Tony kills Farooq for Wells, then Wells will set him free. Because if you remember, they are all in that prison that they made, the Star Labs prison, basically, the metahuman prison, whatever you call it, they're all there. And I actually forgot that they did that in episode 2, because it seemed like such a while ago that they put them all in that prison. And now that we remember that, I like that the show had us remember that, because I myself forgot about that. And I'm really thinking that this is all going to start to connect now, which I think is definitely going to be very cool if that's what's happening. So at the precinct, Clock King makes his demands to the Central City Police, and he grows increasingly erratic and dangerous when the police don't meet his demands. And then we see Eddie. He tries apprehending him, but Eddie is the only, he's not going to do anything. Eddie's immortal right now. The man moves too quickly, though, shoots Eddie down, and I thought he was going to kill Eddie. I honestly thought he was just going to kill him, because Eddie's had a lot to do, and we don't know too much about his character, and plus there's the fact that I think we are going to get a death soon. Like, Arrow kills off a lot of people, so I think the Flash would probably do the same thing, but I think our death is not going to be till the crossover. I think someone is going to die in the crossover. I don't know who, but I just have this feeling, especially because we're getting Reverse Flash, who basically can do anything, and is as powerful as Barry, but is evil. Definitely, I think someone's going to die next week. I don't know when, but I honestly feel it's going to be in the Flash episode, because I want the Flash episode to start off like a normal Flash episode and then escalate into something crazy. So, Clock King ties a Torgunquet on Eddie's arm, giving him some time to survive, and Iris is like panicking right now, because obviously this was her boyfriend, so she's obviously panicking about what's going on. She doesn't want anything bad to happen to Eddie, so everyone's really worried about Eddie. I myself was worried. I didn't know what was going to happen to him. So Farooq's continuing to hunt down Barry and the power inside him, and then Tony attacks him as the two battle, and Barry and Caitlin are afforded the time to move to the treadmill. Now, Caitlin has doubts that Barry's going to survive the process, but Barry tells her they have to try. The experiment doesn't give Barry his powers back, but it doesn't kill him either. So, you know, basically it doesn't give it back, and I knew it wasn't going to work, because we're only like 20 minutes into the episode. I knew it was not going to work, so it really is hard for him to get his powers back, and I like that a lot of the episodes, him just trying to get his powers back. It was cool to see Barry not have those powers. I always like it when you take a superhero and make them weaker than they actually are, and I think that's really cool, actually, because you can do a lot with that, definitely. You know, they basically don't have their powers anymore. They have to be a normal human. You know, they're so used to having that advantage and having those powers. Think of someone like Barry. He can run, like, 400 miles a second. That's how fast he can run. Like, he can run that far, and to have all that gone and, you know, sucked out of him takes a lot out of Barry, definitely, and I think that definitely is very interesting, and I love seeing the way the show approached that. I thought that was definitely really well done. So, then we get probably the biggest twist of the episode, which I didn't think was going to happen. Barry and Caitlin find Tony on the ground, dead by Farooq, and I thought this was surprising, because I honestly thought Tony was going to become a recurring character, that they were going to use Tony, but no, he's dead. So, I thought that was surprising that they just killed off Tony right then and there. I mean, I would have wanted to see a little more of Tony's character. That's actually a complaint for the episode. I would have wanted to actually see more of Tony's character, because these two, Barry and Tony, they have a history. You know, he was his bully, and I would have wanted to see him maybe help Barry a little bit, but he tried his best, but at least he died trying to save the world. So I thought that was really well done. So Caitlin takes Barry into another room to test his blood, and Wells enters the room and admits that he freed Girder to, you know, he freed Tony to help save Barry. And Barry criticizes Wells, and I thought this was great. We got some really good Barry-Wells, you know, confliction here, and I honestly thought Wells was going to drop a secret. I really thought that was going to happen in this scene. And Barry criticizes Wells for sacrificing Tony's life to preserve Barry's, saying that Wells coldly uses people as his pawns to further his own agenda, but Barry's cells rapidly start regenerating, showing that his powers are ironically enough, coming back. So I was like, okay, I guess it's coming back. So you knew they had to come back, but I didn't think they were going to come back till like the last few minutes of the episode, because that's where it seemed like we were heading here. So Farooq enters the room, however, and demands to see Wells so that he can have his revenge, and he's about to kill Barry, but Wells enters the room and tells Farooq to kill him instead, and Farooq electrocutes Wells. The psych kick starts Barry's speed powers back to full maturity. With his super speed restored, Barry fights Farooq. Farooq tries sapping his energy again, but Barry's too strong this time. His immense power overloads Farooq, killing him, and Caitlin deduces that Barry's cells are now producing more energy than ever before. And Wells notes Barry can finally kick it up a notch. Barry finally kicked it up a notch. Because if you remember in the beginning of the episode, he was concerned that Barry wasn't, you know, doing up to his fullest potential. He felt like there was more he could have done, and now he knows that Barry really did it. He ran the fastest he could. So I thought that was awesome, really, that he did that, and I definitely really like that. And you can definitely see that Wells wants to help Barry, definitely. So then we see the Central City PD finally deliver an escape helicopter for Clock King, and Clock King grabs Iris as his hostage when he boards his helicopter, and Joe convinces Clock King to at least let Iris say goodbye to Eddie before taking her away, but Iris takes Eddie's gun and shoots the Clock King. So that was pretty awesome. I didn't think Iris had it in her, but she did. And I'm like, wow, Iris is actually going to be a badass. I mean, is Iris going to turn out to be like the next Laurel here? I mean, I don't know. Iris kind of seemed like the character that didn't have that in her, but maybe she does. So I think that's really cool if she does have that in her. And I like that the show is it's not trying to necessarily copy Arrow, but it has sort of the same characters, because it's all in the same universe, so it makes sense. So Barry raced to the precinct, but the situation is under control, and the police have taken the Clock King into custody, because basically they're not done yet. Just because they took down Farooq doesn't mean they're done, because Clock King is still there. The police have taken Clock King into custody. While Joe and Iris recuperate, he heads back to Star Labs, where he apologizes to Wells for calling him cold, and Wells says that Barry's judgments weren't wrong, but says that he does what he does because he cares about the greater good. And Barry then goes to the hospital to see Eddie, who's recovering from the shooting, and I'm wondering when he's actually going to get better from this. I don't know what's happening with Eddie. You know, we don't know too much about his character, honestly, so do you guys feel we should find out more about Eddie? Eddie's really the only character we don't know too much about. We know everything there is to know about Barry. We know everything there is to know about Joe. We know a lot to know about Caitlin. We know stuff to know about Cisco. We know stuff to know about Iris. We don't really know anything about Eddie. We don't know where he comes from. We don't know what his past is. All we know is that he's a police officer working with Joe to replace the other police officer that was killed in episode 1. That's really all we know about Eddie, and that he's dating Iris, and Joe doesn't really want them together. That's really all we know about Eddie if you think about it. So I'm definitely feeling we're gonna find out more about Eddie. I don't know how, but there's more to know about him, definitely. This can't be everything we know about him. There has to be more, okay? It's that simple. There has to be more that we find out about him. So, Barry then changes into the Flash and sees Iris in the hospital's lobby, and he apologizes for not being there for Iris during the hostage situation and promises that he'll never be late for her again. And I like what she says. She says that her friend always does this to her, and this is not only him apologizing just to the Flash, but also apologizing to her as Barry. And I thought that was a very well done scene that she said that. So it kind of shows that he, you know, has advantages and disadvantages of being the Flash, and I like seeing that definitely in this show. The show's portrayed that very well. And I'm saying the show because as we wind down to the last 2 episodes, I mean, it's about to get awesome, definitely. Because then we get to the post-credit scene, which I honestly didn't think there was going to be a post-credit scene in this episode because of the way the episode ends. Because we go back to Star Labs, and we see Wells opens another log in his time chamber. And Wells notes that Barry's compassion for the people he cares about will unlock his true potential. And the Crisis newspaper from the headline from the future reappears, confirming that Wells' future remains intact. So, we know what happened in Wells' future still happens. So Wells then goes to Star Labs morgue and extracts blood from Farooq's corpse. So, knowing that Farooq could steal the Flash powers, he says that he plans to find out how Farooq could achieve such a feat and then replicate the process for himself. So, what is Wells really doing here? Clearly, he is working against Barry, definitely. I don't know what he's doing, but could he distill the Flash's powers and try using them? A lot of people are thinking that Wells is the Reverse Flash. I just feel that's a little too predictable. I really do. Because why would Wells... Now, it does make sense if Wells is the... Also, you know, if Wells is the Reverse Flash. We saw the Reverse Flash on Arrow already. So my thinking here is that, if you remember, in the first episode, we saw a newspaper headline that says Oliver Queen loses his fortune. So if Wells really is the Reverse Flash, it could really make sense. However, there could be someone else from the future that could end up in the, you know, present and try to screw things up for them. That could happen as well. Really, any of those possibilities are possible. I don't know which one could be true, but I really think all those things could be possible. I mean, it all really does make sense if you think about it. You know, it really shows how everything's connected. And let's talk about Flash vs. Arrow. We saw a preview for Flash vs. Arrow, and I'm hyped for it, guys. I can't watch it live, unfortunately. I can't. I'm sorry about that, but I can't. And let me talk about how hyped I am for it. First of all, the reason that Barry and Oliver are going to fight is because Barry's not going to be himself. Barry's going to be the Reverse Flash. He's going to be under some sort of poison, basically, that, you know, basically will end up, you know, turning him into something he's not, and turning him into a bad guy. That's why he sounds so douchey in all the promos, because he's not himself. Think about it. Barry's not a douchey guy. He's not like this. So it makes sense why they're doing that. And I really love the way they're heading with everything. I love this scene where we see Iris kind of, and Felicity competing over who's better, Barry or Oliver. It seems like it's going to be awesome there. I can't wait for that. And I really hope this crossover doesn't, you know, let down. I think that the Flash part is going to be a lot more lighthearted, and it's really going to show how different these two shows are. The Flash showed that when they want to go dark, they can go dark tonight. They showed that tonight. However, Arrow is the darker show here. However, The Flash can go dark. This episode really proves that the show is not as cheesy as everyone thinks. Like, everyone has said, this show is really cheesy. And I could see why someone would think that. But here's the thing. The show can be dark when it wants to be dark, and I really like that this episode showed that, because I like it when the show is dark. There's a few things to talk about, first of all. Because we saw Tony tonight, and even though he died, do you think we're going to see some of the other villains again? Maybe we're going to see the guy from episode 4. I can't remember his name now, but do you think we're going to see some of the other villains? The ones that Barry did not kill. He didn't kill the one in episode 3, he didn't kill the one in episode 4, or episode 6, well, Tony's dead now, so do you think that either of them are going to end up, you know, we're going to see them again? I could definitely see that happening. The way they connected it was interesting, so I could definitely see them bringing some of those characters back. I could definitely see that happening again. What do you think is going to happen with Wells? What do you think Wells is hiding? Do you think Wells is against Barry? Is he trying to prevent something from happening to Barry? Does he know something that Barry doesn't? How does this connect to Oliver? That's what I want to know. Does he have something to do with the Reverse Flash? I could see that happening, definitely. What do you think is happening with Barry and Iris? I mean, I honestly feel that by this mid-season finale, Iris is going to find out. There are so many times when Barry's been this close to telling Iris, and if he doesn't tell her in the mid-season finale, then I don't know when he's going to tell her. Do you want to know more about Eddie? I want to know so much more about Eddie. There is clearly something that Eddie is hiding that we do not know about, and I want to find out what it is, because it's really just, I want to find out what's going on with Eddie, definitely. There's something that we don't know about him. And I really want to see what's going on there, because we know nothing about him, and I want to find out more about him. We didn't see too much of Joe in this episode, which was fine. What do you think about Iris killing, you know, shooting the Clock King? Do you think she is going to possibly end up like Laurel? Do you think I don't know what's going to happen there. I personally feel that she will eventually become part of the team. I don't know if it's going to be called like Team Flash, like Arrow is, but I do think they're going to do something like that. I just feel like the show will do something like that. Let me know what you guys are going to think of Flash vs. Arrow. I'm so hyped for it. I think it's going to be one of the best crossovers I've seen in a very long time. I could definitely see this crossover working. There were some points where I'm like, is this going to be forced? But the way they're heading with it, I think it's going to make sense. I think it's really going to work. I think the way that they're portraying it, the way that they're portraying and everything, I think it could work. I really think this is going to work, and I think this is going to be a very successful crossover that, in my opinion, I'm really looking forward to watching. Are you guys looking forward to watching it? I'm really looking forward to it. That's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Overall, honestly, I did think this was the best episode so far. I thought this was probably the best episode of the season. It really showed what Wells is. It kind of showed what's going on with Wells. It gave us some more clues about that, which I liked. I like finding out more about, you know, I like seeing Iris kill someone. It was really cool to see that. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for the season finale of Awkward. Yes, I will watch Awkward Lifetime because there's no Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and no Sons of Anarchy. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.